Hey folks, well, the Leafs sweep through Sweden. Willie's on fire. Secondary scoring. Third in the division. The penalty kill. It's all coming along here all of a sudden. We're going to bring it all down for you right here on the OZone.
You're in the offensive zone. Your place for Leafs hockey.
Hey folks, welcome to the OZone. That's Coach. We love you, KD. I'm the Devo. We're here to talk all things Leafs. I'm coming to you from the OZone HQ in downtown Toronto. Coach, where are you at?
Happy to be back at the international headquarters in jolly old London. Big week in Stockholm, though.
Yeah, indeed. Folks, remember, before we get started, hit subscribe, like, share the video. You want to like and share the video anyways, right? Spreads the word. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Guides the content. Helps us get better. Coach, back from the land of the midnight sun, how was your trip to Salmingland?
Yeah, Devo, not much sun this time of year. I'll tell you what, it went down about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'll tell you what, Stockholm was still fantastic. So Mrs. Coach and I got a chance to go to both games there. And in terms of Stockholm, if you haven't been, it's a must visit. It was awesome. I got a couple pictures here to show you. Here's us in front of the Nobel Museum. That's 3 generations of coaches there. Mrs. Coach and her mother and our daughter, our oldest daughter. So there you go. Also visited the palace. Now, King Gustav wasn't there, but I signed into the book here. Here's the coach from the OZone. Go Leafs Go. So you know he's a fan, right?
Yeah,
King
of course.
Gustav.
Yeah.
He's been in power 50 years. I didn't even know they had a king, but I guess they've had at least 3. The Trey Kroners, forget it.
Well, there was Salming, and there's going to be Nylander soon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think Pontus Aberg makes that list, though. So and then here's us in front of the arena. So it's an interesting arena. We can talk about what it was like, but it was a great trip. Beautiful city.
Beautiful.
Leaf fans everywhere.
What was the rink like?
It was different. It wasn't quite up to North American standards. Primarily, here's a shot of the roof, and it goes way up. So apparently the acoustics are good for concerts, I guess, but the noise within the building gets lost.
Right.
And so, you know what? It was so quiet. It actually reminded me of a Leafs home game during the week with all the corporate people. But so there were only 13,000 and change seats. And actually the seats themselves, with one notable exception, were packed in pretty good. You're pretty close to the ice, but it just didn't generate a whole bunch of sound. Here's the notable exception. So I took a picture here. These were our seats on the Friday night game against Detroit. Mm-hmm. And actually, I'll give Detroit fans credit. I expected to see blue and white everywhere, right? Stockholm, I expected to be a Leaf town, all kinds of Leafs heritage there. But there's some Red Wings heritage too. And I would say that the jerseys were about 60-40. Detroit fans came and they were pretty vocal too, but that's not really. And the entire building, the paint scheme of the building is red too, so it makes it look like there's lots of Red Wings fans. But what I wanted to point out is, look at the gap between the first row and the glass.
Yeah.
So your glass seats are not glass seats, right?
Right.
And actually, I found that out on the Sunday game. I was sitting right down third row. And here you go. Here's Keefe and Guy Boucher. They came over to the coach and asked me about some adjustments, right? Yeah, so here's a shot of that. All in all, I think the rink was okay. I'd hoped it'd be louder. It was super loud, though, when Nylander scored that goal in overtime. The place went crazy. It was awesome.
For sure. I mean, on TV, you could tell they obviously did a very good job of getting their mics down close to the ice. It sounded like a normal game. I was expecting there to be
Good.
a bit of an international game, where the camera seems like it's a little bit too far back, and
Yeah.
you see too much of the ice surface, and you don't get enough of the speed. But no, it was really geared and came off like a typical NHL game. So it came across just fine. Coach, I understand that when you were there, other than Boucher and Keefe, you were recognized as always.
Yeah, actually, so the last time I chirped Guy Boucher was at the draft when he was in Dallas. And he was, I think, the coach of Ottawa still at the time. And my buddy Vanny, he's a subscriber, and we were chirping him because he couldn't get on the elevator. I was telling him we ran the trap. So that time when he walked by, I'm like, hey, Guy, get the power play going. Allons-y. And when he heard me say allons-y, he turned and he was laughing. He gave me a thumbs up. But anyway, so, yeah, I got recognized a couple times. Now, Devo, you and I and Regan, our correspondent, have a good nose for sniffing out people that you might recognize.
Sure.
This time I got recognized by this lady right here. And she came up to me and right before the first game, the Detroit game, and said, hey, can I take your picture? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Why? She said, well, I noticed you're wearing a Borje Salming jersey, and I want to take a picture, and maybe we put that on our website. And she pointed to her vest, and it's the Borje Salming ALS Foundation vest.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, if I can take your picture. So she took a picture of Mrs. Coach and then I took this picture. And then I'm like, who is that? Like, what? Why is she wearing that vest? Well, it turns out that's Teresa Salming. That's Borje Salming's eldest daughter. And I know that because later on in the game, this is our row. It's a picture of our row. There's Teresa Salming. She's 2 spots from me, so I got talking to her a bit. But down there with the other arrow is Anders Salming, his son. And his son dropped the first puck, and he gave like the player of the game thing out. So they were right there in our row, which was great.
That's great.
So look, here's the other thing. Devo, with being a longtime veteran of the media industry, as you and I are,
yeah,
I like to help the kids. You want to give back.
Got to give back.
So the Sunday game, here's Julian McKenzie or Bob McKenzie's kid. He comes over. He's asking me how he's going to set up this bit. So yeah, of course I gave him some advice. And from a podcast standpoint, here's this guy Steve Dangle I met, and he's asking me about how we set things up, how you set up a bit, how we run the coach analysis. No, he's not. He puts out. So obviously, between this guy and me, we have tens, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Devo, you and I have 200 of those. Which, by the way, folks, we're fired up. We got to 200. Yeah, who would have thought?
That's right.
But Steve Dangle, so he puts out on Twitter, hey, meet up, at the top of section 124. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do this. There were at least a couple hundred people there waiting for him. And not everybody speaking English. He's a worldwide phenomenon. So I got his picture. That's really cool. Hey, what a nice guy. Here's how it went down. He comes in, and he happens to stop right by me, so I was one of the first people to get a picture. And he's taking pictures, and he's pretty good with everybody, but he's looking around and he says, "Holy shit, I feel like a Kardashian here." And and so I get up and I say, "Hey, if you're a Kardashian, you had any work done?" Just to break the ice, right? He doesn't stop. He goes, "Well, yeah, just my ass." And I say, "Yeah, but who hasn't?" And he stops and he looks at me like, okay, that was pretty quick. So you take the picture. I just told him I liked his work, and that was great. So that prompted me to do one of our first ever, certainly our first international subscriber meetup in the second intermission.
Sure.
Yeah. So here it is. We got one. This is Ferg. Ferg happened to be there. Now, I guess there's two, because Mrs. Coach is technically a subscriber, and she's taking the picture. But, yeah, you may remember from the New Jersey episode where I was all steamed at Minzy's guy there, Kevin Weeks. This is Ferg from Orangeville. And so he hit me up. He's like, hey, you going to that game? Yeah. So we met up for a beer. This is great. Our subscribers are everywhere, Devo.
Everywhere.
All
Yeah.
200 of them.
It's a tight group, but my goodness, they
Yeah.
travel well. All
Yeah,
right.
so look, we'll get done with the show and tell, but it was a fantastic weekend. I would totally recommend it. If do you hear Austin Matthews said, "Hey, let's go play in Mexico City"?
Oh,
That would be fantastic.
That
too.
would be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
really something. All right, Coach, let's get back to the Leafs. 4 in a row now.
Yeah.
Keefe seems to be getting these guys to play a little bit more inspired defensively anyways, better gap management. I think we can sort of see across the board, not just on the defenders. But what's been the difference? Is it one thing? Is it a lot of things? What has happened in the last 4 games that we just didn't see earlier on in the season?
Yeah, I'd be interested to get your take on this too. I think you can kind of see more of it when you're watching on TV a little bit, but to me, they're still not firing on all cylinders. In both those games, they were outplayed in long stretches. They got hemmed in their zone a little bit in both games, and I feel like the top 6 is playing way too much. My goodness, like these are midseason, November games, and so Keefe has made some changes. I don't think there's any arguing the fourth line has been better without Reeves. But the bottom 6 really isn't still trusted other than maybe David Kampf. If you look at the weekend, Domi was -1, Robertson was -2, McMahon was even. But look, all those 3 guys played 8 minutes or less against Minnesota. And Robertson and Domi were less than 9 versus Detroit too. It's really hard to spread out the ice time if you don't trust those guys to play. 8-9 minutes is nothing, right? And look, the D has also been a bit better without Klingberg. I'm not going to get into that again. You know my feeling about it. I can tell you this, though. Simon Benoit is not the answer. No. He's a big guy, but he only played 10 minutes against Detroit, 11 against Minnesota, and he makes Justin Hall, our old whipping boy, look like Cale Makar by comparison. He cannot wait to get rid of it. It's a true live grenade with him.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. I mean, I got to give him cut him a little bit of slack. He hasn't had a lot of ice time, a lot of NHL time. That's a bit of an experience thing, but it does obviously not seem to be something that comes naturally to him in the heat of the moment, for sure.
But you contrast that with Lagesson. Lagesson didn't get many minutes up front either. However, he's been good.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is they're getting a save, right? Both goalies have played well last few games, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. The problem with the Leafs this year is the problem with the Leafs the last couple of years. They're a possession, high octane team. When the puck gets low on them, they don't have they're not built to sort of shut down the cycle, lock a guy on the boards, free up the puck and break it out. They want to transition fast. If you've got possession on them, it's trouble. And this is evidenced, people. Look at their production in the second period overall. Like if they're even overall on second periods, or in the games where they get beaten badly, they normally get crushed in the second period on the long change. It's when they're a little bit sloppy that other teams get a chance to get the puck deep on them, and they just do not have the capability to bust it back out.
5 shots on Sunday in the second period. Outshot like 16-5, and then I think 4 in the third, or maybe vice versa. But yeah, fair point.
And that was their calling card. I mean, that has been their calling card, and that's usually a possession team's calling card. The second period, the other team can't get a change, and they just wear you down. All right, another thing, I guess you pointed to goaltending. I think having the save certainly matters. This is something I've been harping on since the summer. But of late, it's been outstanding, perfect and sweet in the penalty kill. I think that's one thing we could probably point to as well over the last few games. Coach, what's going on? How are they getting it done?
Couple of adjustments, right? So we talked a pod or two ago about him moving Marner off of the unit that starts so he could go with Matthews. Now Marner's back on that first unit. I think that's a good call. He's our best penalty killer up front. That's big.
He and Kampf are great together on that.
They're solid, right? Yeah. And then Brody and Gio are also always solid. I will say I was really impressed with McCabe over the weekend. He was moving well. He certainly seems to be better than he was to start the season. He's another big penalty killer. Matthews has been good on the penalty kill. So they go Kampf and Marner, Matthews, and I think Yarncroc, maybe back to Kampf and Marner. And at the end, they've gone Matthews and Nylander. Don't mind it at all, except for the big guys are playing too many minutes in general. But the biggest thing, again, Devo, we're getting a save, right? The goalie's always your best penalty killer, and we're getting a save these days.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, despite the lack of trust and a lot of minutes, we have seen over the last little stretch some secondary scoring, some other guys chipping in, which is great. It's nice to see Bertuzzi, Yarncroc, Domi, and Nye is certainly getting some points as well. But the Stars, Coach, I mean, the Stars, they are on fire. It's nice to have secondary scoring for sure, but you need your biggest contracts to be the biggest producers, and the Leafs certainly have that right now. What do you think about that?
I'm glad you mentioned Bertuzzi. I thought he played his best hockey of the year in Sweden. That line has been going good. And isn't it nice that the guy who right now, as of the time of this recording, leads the league in goals is on our second best line? Yeah. That's pretty solid. So that's good depth. And you listed Riley up here as one of these guys. Riley is really skating well.
Yep.
But look, we said on the last pod, we both agreed Nylander's somewhat one-dimensional. Maybe he's sort of starting to prove us otherwise. I don't know, a little early for that. And we also said, I certainly said, he's going to cool off. He'll cool off eventually, right? Well, maybe not apparently just yet. Maybe Teddy, and it looks like he's earning himself more money with this point streak continuing. He was the darling of the league when he's in Stockholm. Teddy KGB had it right in Rounders. This guy here, pay him, pay that man his money. So, Devo, does it even start with a 10 now? Is he an $11 million player? I mean, he's got to cool off, right?
We talked about it in the last pod, and I've explained myself why I don't go to 11. 11 million is a guy who plays every position, a guy who can play in every situation. They're flirting with him on the penalty kill right now, but I don't really believe that's a natural spot for him.
Yeah.
He's not a natural guy in his own end. He's a goal scorer. He's really, really good at that. He's in the mid-10s. Like I think that's where you max him out. Personally, that's me. I love him on the team.
Couldn't you have got him for something that started with a 9 before the year? I don't know.
Yeah, you might have been.
But look, it will be. It's tricky. Me for sure, wasn't happy with Dubas and handing out all that money to all those guys. Right?
Yeah.
Seemed like he overpaid a lot. Marner for sure. Maybe Matthews too. So now Treliving's got this deal with Nylander. How's he going to do it? It'll be really interesting.
It will be interesting. The Leafs are going to start playing a little bit of catch-up in the next few weeks. They got a lot of back-to-back games coming up. If they keep winning, like they're doing now, of course they'll be able to close the gap with Florida and Boston. But, Coach, what do you want to see? What needs to start happening? What do you need to see from the Leafs as we gain the next few weeks coming up on Christmas to start feeling comfortable about this team being a 100-point season team?
Yeah. It's funny, when they went to Stockholm, all the talk was that Calgary is dead and we should go pick up a couple of their D. Well, what a difference a week makes. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. I'm not sure that trade's coming. And I'm not sure you need to press the panic button if you're the Leafs just yet. Remember this same time last year, lots of injuries, pushed through, got through it. I'd like to see that happens. But here's what I'd like to see between now and Christmas. I'd like to see Matt Murray prepare the upper bunk in his cottage over on Robidas Island for John Klingberg. Put him over there, get him settled. Klingberg's banged up. Let's figure out a way to get him there. I'd like to dial Gio back. I think we got to dial him back. He was at 17, 18 minutes for a long time. Liljegren gets hurt. Klingberg's done. So, and we got to dial Riley back to 22 or so. He was 26 in both those games. So that means we got to find a 6th D that can be trusted to play 15 minutes or so. Simon Benoit is not that guy.
Not that guy.
Hey, Connor Timmins seems like he's on the way back. Maybe he's that guy.
Yeah, he's been skating, right?
I think
Yeah.
Willie's going to cool off. Can he get back and be more consistent? Can he not let this affect him for 7-8 games? That would be big. I'd like to see 34 get hot again. He's having a
Sure.
very quiet, leading the league in goals season. And then I'd like to see the goaltending get into a groove here tandem wise. Got 3 back-to-backs here in the next 5 weeks or so. So both guys are going to have to play anyway. Let's see if we can get rolling. And above all, good health to everybody, especially our stars. But hey, what's on your Christmas list, Devo?
Well, it's not as illustrious as yours. It's always simple to buy for me around Christmas time. Listen, I'm easy. World peace and a 255-pound defender. That's really all I want. If you can't find that, a nice single malt always helps as well.
Ooh.
Anyways,
All right.
folks, there you have it. Everything you need to know about your Leafs and your buds right here with your best buds. Hit subscribe. Join that 200-plus army. We'd love to have you. We want to have you right here on the OZone.
Happy Thanksgiving to our American subscribers.
Gobble, gobble.